So, here we are again, on our way to Oak Island. How y'all feeling?
Well, it's exciting because I'm basically satisfied that something happened on Oak Island.
We begin a new year with this mission statement. Let's solve it. Let's find the answers.
For years, Rick Lagina has believed that the true heart of Oak Island lies deeper than anyone dared to imagine. But this season, as the drilling crew pushed further into the garden shaft, something extraordinary began to take shape, something that even the most hardened treasure hunters weren't prepared for. At a depth where ordinary excavations usually fail, Rick noticed a strange shift in the soil, followed by the unmistakable echo of open space. Moments later, the drill bit punched through into what experts now suspect is part of a long-buried tunnel network, crafted centuries ago with a purpose no one has been able to explain. What happened next sent a jolt through the entire team. The probes brought up fragments of ancient timber, metallic traces, and a sudden spike in gold readings, levels so high that analysts estimated the deposit could be worth more than $50 million. For the first time, the theory of a concealed treasure chamber beneath the garden shaft was no longer speculation. It was evidence. As Rick Lagina stared into the darkness of the newly discovered tunnel, he realized Oak Island was finally giving up its greatest secret. And this time, the treasure might be within reach. And if you want to stay ahead of every new Oak Island breakthrough, make sure to subscribe, because the next discovery could change everything. It began the way most legends are born, not with noise, but with a quiet moment that almost slips past, unnoticed. At 7:42 a.m., when the light had only just broken across Oak Island, Rick Lagina paused beside a disturbed patch of soil near the garden shaft. Something about this small, 1.3-meter wide section felt strangely unsettled. The ground looked recently shifted, yet no crew had touched this area for at least 18 hours. When Rick brushed away the first handful of dirt, the island revealed a secret it had guarded for centuries. A smooth, cold edge of stone surfaced. Small, roughly 9 centimeters long, yet impossibly deliberate. As he cleared more earth, a carved face emerged, its features worn, but unmistakably intentional. The eyes were closed, the expression serene, as though carved by someone who believed the face would one day be found. Rick turned it over, slowly. The craftsmanship didn't match any known artifact recovered from Oak Island. No modern tool marks, no accidental chipping. The lines were cut with precision that suggested skilled hands working centuries ago, perhaps even before the first recorded settlers arrived in 1795. The artifact's weight, exactly 412 grams, seemed to press into Rick's palm like a heartbeat. He sensed something stir inside him, a feeling older than reason. The island wasn't resisting today, it was guiding. Under the rising sunlight, faint symbols appeared near the edge of the carved face. Tiny grooves, each no more than 2 millimeters deep, curving in a pattern that didn't resemble any random scratch. It was as if the stone fragment was part of a larger object, maybe a marker, broken off from something hidden deeper below. Marty arrived at 8:06 a.m., expecting routine progress updates. Instead, he found Rick kneeling in silence, the fragment cradled carefully in his hands. One look at the carving, and Marty felt the same pull. A silent confirmation that this wasn't debris or coincidence, this was placed. The team assembled slowly, whispers replacing their usual chatter. Even the heavy machinery idled down, as if the island itself demanded respect. Someone asked how deep it had been found. Rick pointed. 27 centimeters, just shallow enough to be uncovered by erosion, but deep enough that no modern worker could have accidentally buried it. Then Rick noticed something else. Beneath the loose soil, forming just visible under the surface, were faint, straight impressions in the ground, not natural cracks, lines, measurements. He pulled out a probe and gently traced along them. The readings showed a change in density, extending horizontally for almost 4.7 meters, a buried structure. Shallow, deliberate, old. The carved face wasn't the treasure, it was the doorway. And as the sunlight climbed past 9 a.m., illuminating the soil from the perfect angle, the shape beneath the earth revealed itself with undeniable clarity. Something mapped, something constructed long before their time, something waiting for the next discovery that would change their understanding of the entire island. The first clue had spoken, and the island was far from finished. 14 October 2025, 8:19 a.m. A misty silence hung over Oak Island when Rick Lagina stepped into the garden shaft operations office expecting nothing more than routine paperwork, but the island had other plans. Inside the small room, lit by a single, humming fluorescent tube, lay an object that defied every rule of history. A parchment that should have turned to dust centuries ago. The crew had found it accidentally, buried 3.2 meters west of the shaft, sealed beneath layers of hand-hewn timber, believed to date back to the 17th century. No one could explain its preservation. No one could find a logical path through the impossibility of its existence. And yet, as Rick unrolled it across the table, the truth of the object pushed logic aside. The parchment revealed a network of tunnels and chambers drawn with mathematical artistry far beyond what early settlers possessed. Lines intersected at perfect angles. Depth markers, 31 meters, 48 meters, 61 meters, were placed with careful precision. And in the lower chamber, at the deepest point, a symbol appeared. A stylized figure, its outline shimmering faintly with gold ink, shaped unmistakably like a statue. Rick leaned in, breath steady, yet charged with an emotion he rarely allowed himself to show on camera. What he saw didn't resemble a treasure map. It resembled a memorial, a record created by hands that understood the permanence of their work. This was not a guide meant for treasure hunters. This was a story etched by people who never expected to return to the surface, but wanted their truth to endure long after they were gone. At 8:27 a.m., Marty Lagina entered the room, cup of coffee in hand. One look at the parchment, and the cup stopped halfway to his lips. The tunnel layout mirrored seismic anomalies their team had discovered over the past year, patterns they dismissed as errors because no known civilization in this region could engineer such complexity. Now, the evidence lay before them in ink that had survived more than 2 centuries. Rick traced a finger along a 42-meter tunnel descending toward a chamber shaped like a protective cradle. Every line felt deliberate. Every mark felt intentional. The symbol of the statue, bold, clear, drawn with deeper strokes, revealed the mapmaker's message. This chamber was the heart of their legacy. The carved stone fragment Rick discovered a week earlier suddenly gained clarity. Its grooves, its style, even its weight, 412 grams, matched the artistry shown on the parchment. It was not an isolated relic. It was a piece of the same forgotten world. Rick exhaled slowly. "If this map is real," he said quietly, "then we're not just chasing treasure. We're uncovering a civilization's last breath." Outside, the fog lifted as if the island itself was revealing its face. The crew gathered beside Rick, the parchment held carefully between them, its edges trembling in the morning breeze. The island felt alive, aware almost responsive, as though each discovery brought it closer to telling the story it had buried for centuries. And as the team stared toward the garden shaft, one truth settled over them like the weight of the earth beneath their boots. If the tunnels carved onto that fragile parchment truly lay beneath their feet, then their greatest discovery was no longer somewhere out there. It was waiting in the depths, carved in darkness, preserved in silence, and closer than any of them dared to believe. 20 October 2025, 11:14 a.m. A cold wind swept across Oak Island as the garden shaft crew prepared the drilling platform for its deepest attempt. Yet the map found days earlier had changed everything. The angles, the depths, the confidence. For the first time, the team had a direction drawn not by guesswork, but by the hands of those who built these hidden halls centuries ago. At 11:27 a.m., the drill bit began cutting through the earth, chewing past soil, clay, and finally into the stubborn resistance of fractured bedrock. Every meter they progressed matched the parchment's measurements with eerie precision. By 18.6 meters, the drill shuddered. At 19.1 meters, the shaft walls began to vibrate with a hollow resonance that made the crew fall silent, hollow space, just where the map said it would be. The monitoring equipment registered a sudden drop in density, a void stretching horizontally for several meters. Lagina stepped forward, eyes narrowed, listening not to the machines, but to the island. He had felt this before. The fragile pause, the quiet breath the ground seemed to take before revealing something long concealed. The breakthrough came at 19.4 meters. A dull crack, a heavy sigh of shifting earth. Then timber. Ancient timbers set in a way no natural collapse could explain. They were uniform, hand-cut, aligned with the kind of precision only a deliberate builder would attempt. The wood was darkened by age, yet still held the quiet rigidity of craftsmanship meant to endure. This wasn't a random cavity. It was engineered. A chamber wall, a barrier, a threshold. Marty's voice broke the silence. These timbers, they're not falling apart. They're placed. Placed to protect or conceal no one yet knew. When the cage was lowered, Rick insisted on going first. The descent was slow, centimeter by centimeter. The metal bars cold beneath his hands as the cage rattled along the track. The deeper he went, the darker the air became. Carrying a smell he recognized instantly. Wood, age, and time sealed away too long. At 19.4 meters, his boots touched the timber surface. His flashlight cut through the darkness, illuminating a construction so impossibly intact that it stole whatever breath remained in his lungs. Wooden beams formed what looked like the edge of an entrance, connected, layered, interlocked. Not one piece had been placed without purpose. These were not supports. They were gates. Rick's heart pounded as he stepped forward. The structure felt ancient and alive, as though centuries of trapped history vibrated faintly beneath his fingertips. Whoever built this had worked in secrecy and with fear. Fear of discovery or fear of what they were burying. He scanned the chamber wall again. Tool marks, precise, angled, nearly 600 years old by the preliminary look, ran in symmetrical rows. And there, just faintly above one beam, lay the same symbol found on the parchment. 3 vertical lines beside a curve. Rick whispered, "This is it." The map wasn't a myth. The parchment wasn't a coincidence. And the fragment wasn't just a clue. They were all pieces of the same buried world. Above him, the cage creaked and distant voices echoed down the shaft. But Rick barely heard them. The discovery pulled him forward like a thread connecting past to present the threshold was open, and deeper shadows seemed to invite him onward. Toward a chamber the map claimed held a secret far greater than anyone had dared to imagine. It began with a single spike, sharp, violent, and far too powerful to ignore. The metal detector's readings shot upward as if something beneath the earth had woken after centuries of silence. The monitors flickered, painting the chamber below with streaks of concentrated metallic density. Rick froze. This wasn't the signature of scattered coins or drifting fragments. This was something solid, something deliberate. The deeper the team listened, the clearer the signal became. A heartbeat of gold, pulsing beneath layers of stone and secrecy. Rick descended once more, the cage rattling as if Oak Island itself were exhaling. The moment his boots touched the chamber floor, the temperature shifted. The air was cold, untouched, almost sacred. Every sound felt swallowed by the stone, as though the walls carried the whispers of those who built this place. A faint dust cloud drifted across the ground, revealing lines, actual carved lines, etched into the floor with precision no accident could create. And then, emerging from the darkness like a ghost of a forgotten dynasty, a shape appeared. A shoulder, a curve, a form too smooth, too symmetrical to be natural. Rick's light fell upon it fully, and the chamber seemed to breathe. Before him stood the silhouette of a statue, tall, towering, and buried in time. Dust clung to its surface, yet beneath that thin veil, a muted golden glow pushed through, as if the artifact itself remembered what it once was. This wasn't treasure scattered by survivors. This wasn't debris washed in by fate. This was something placed here with intention, an object meant to be found only when the world was ready. And Rick Lagina had just stepped into the moment history had been waiting for. In the end, it wasn't bedrock, machinery, or time that threatened the discovery. It was fear, the kind that lives deep in the spine, whispering warnings older than language itself. As Rick stepped deeper into the chamber, the island seemed to awaken. The flood tunnels, silent for centuries, groaned with ancient pressure. Water pulsed through the stone arteries beneath them, reminding the team that Oak Island had drowned every secret ever forced upon it. One wrong move, one shift in weight, and the chamber could collapse, taking the truth and the team with it. But Rick Lagina refused to step back. Steadying his breath, he signaled the crew. Braces were lowered, timbers were secured. Every second felt stolen from an island that had never shown mercy. The walls trembled, dust falling like cold ash from the ceiling. Yet slowly, painfully, the chaos quieted. And then, through the haze of settling stone, the heart of the chamber revealed itself. There it stood, the statue, not simply gold-coated, but gold-encrusted. Its surface carried the scars of age, the weight of storms, the silence of centuries. Time had tried to erase it, but the artifact still burned with a muted brilliance, as though defying the darkness around it. The world had whispered about Oak Island's treasure for over 200 years. None imagined the truth would look like this, an object valued at $50 million, yet carrying far more than earthly worth. Its presence felt almost ceremonial, as if it had been placed in the chamber not to be found, but to test the resolve of those who dared seek it. Rick stared at it, breath unsteady. Some treasures shine, this one judged. And the team had passed. When Rick's fingertips finally brushed the cold, uneven surface of the golden statue, the chamber reacted like a living thing, awakening from an eternal sleep. A deep vibration rolled through the stone, so faint it felt more like a heartbeat than a tremor. Dust lifted from the floor in swirling rings, drifting upward as though the air itself had been holding its breath for centuries. No one spoke. No one dared to. In that underground silence, even the sound of their own breathing felt disrespectful. The statue was colder than expected, cold in a way that suggested it had not felt human warmth in hundreds of years. Rick's gloved hand lingered on the surface, tracing the carved seams where ancient craftsmen had shaped metal with tools now lost to history. As the lights adjusted, the golden contours sharpened. The arch of the figure's spine, the fold of its robe, the faint, almost imperceptible etching of symbols that looked older than the written alphabets known to scholars. For a moment, Rick couldn't move, not out of fear, out of reverence. The weight of 227 years of failures, collapses, flooded tunnels, broken hopes, and unanswered questions pressed down on him like the ceiling of the earth above generations had chased this myth. 6 men had died looking for what he was touching, and now the island, after centuries of guarding its secret with ruthless precision, had chosen to reveal the truth, but only to those who refused to give up. There were no cheers, no celebratory shouts, just an overwhelming, humbling recognition that they were witnessing something far greater than treasure. One by one, the team approached the statue, not rushing, not grabbing, just observing. Like archaeologists entering a tomb untouched since the day it was sealed, Marty stood beside Rick, swallowed hard, and whispered, "We're not the first to stand here, but we're the first to be allowed." Slowly, the crew prepared the lifting rig. The chamber's walls, constructed with engineering precision, lost to modern craftsmen, reflected the soft glow of their headlamps. As the winch tightened, the statue rose from its stone cradle inch by inch. Gold dust drifted down like ancient ash, catching the light in delicate sparkles before vanishing into the darkness below. When the statue reached chest height, the chamber seemed to exhale, releasing a gust of cool, mineral-scented air that washed over the team like a final farewell from the builders who had hidden it. It felt, if only for a second, as though the island's guardians were acknowledging the moment. As Rick steadied the rising artifact, a truth settled over him with absolute clarity. This wasn't a victory of greed. It wasn't even a victory of discovery. It was a victory of faith. Everything they had endured, the flooded shafts, the shattered drills, the sleepless nights studying maps, the crushing defeats, had led them to this silent, golden room, carved into the earth by hands that believed the future would demand this secret, and now that future had arrived. When the statue finally cleared the ground and hung suspended in the air, shimmering under the floodlights, Rick Lagina understood the real message buried beneath the gold. Oak Island had been waiting, not for explorers, but for believers. And as he stood there, surrounded by dust, history, and the echo of a legend reborn, Rick knew this discovery would never belong to him alone. It belonged to every soul who had dared to dream that the impossible could be real. Legends don't fade. They wait until the right hands carry them into the light.